interceptions in the last 2 or 3 weeks, they're not winning any football games. So they go hand in hand. There's not any, Skip, let's look. This is barren, this is wasteland. And there's nothing but tumbleweeds. But Cam is not playing well, and it's exacerbating the problem because you look and you're like, oh, man. But when you see Cam skipping balls and you see Cam throwing interceptions with no touchdowns, so you have the perfect storm. You have a situation where there's not anything there, and you have a situation where the quarterback is not playing well. So it looks, I mean, if you can imagine this, Skip, it looks worse than if you can imagine this, it's actually worse than it is. Looks worse than it is. But if you can imagine that, because there is nothing, this, like I said early in the show, Skip, if you look at this offense, you tell me one player on offense that can go somewhere else right now and start. Name one. Maybe Tooney, the guard. I mean, they franchise, I think, Joe Tooney. But that's it. And then you go to the defensive side, maybe Devin McCourty, and Stephon Gilmore for sure. But that's it. Of 22 starters, you got maybe 3 guys that can go elsewhere and start. That's a recipe for whatever their record is. That's how you get that record. No talent, and then the talent that you do have not play well.
Okay, so if you had to divvy up the blame percentage-wise for 2 and 4, how much percent blame would you give to Belichick versus Cam?
75%.
75, 25 to Cam?
Mm-hmm.
Shannon.
Yep.
I can't do that to Cam Newton.
Would you going to drop 90 on Coach Belichick?
I'm going to drop 95 on his head because he deserves it. He's getting exposed. And he's also, to me, getting a pass because I don't think enough of the NFL world has focused on just how awful this roster is and how bleak it looks the rest of the way this year. They've got 2 games left against the Jets, and those are the only 2 games that I can see them winning. And I'm not even sure they can win both of those. So you look back at Bill Belichick pre-Tom Brady, before Brady fell out of heaven into his lap because of an injury to Drew Bledsoe, going into week 3 of that year in 2001, Bill Belichick's record as a head coach was 41-57. I'm not saying he was a bad head coach, but he wasn't an all-time great one.
No,
and Tom Brady made him great. Tom put Bill in the GOAT conversation. And now Cam is bearing the brunt of a roster that Belichick let over the last 3 years just slide into oblivion. It's shocking how bad he let it become. He swung and missed on so many draft picks. He refrained from pursuing so many free agents that they just so desperately needed to add to this roster to plug some holes.
Well, Skip, he doesn't want to pay anybody.
He doesn't want to pay anybody, although I don't know where the money's going. It's sort of like the NCAA. I never know where all the TV money goes in the NCAA. I don't know how the cap is divvied up unless Belichick gets some of it, but I don't think he does. So my point is, when Cam is going to have to play the team many thought would dethrone you in the division at Buffalo this Sunday, and his starting receivers are Jacoby Myers, undrafted out of North Carolina State, and Damiere Byrd, who came over from Arizona, where he's about the 5th receiver. He was undrafted out of South Carolina. And your 3rd receiver this Sunday at Buffalo is Gunnar Olszewski, undrafted out of Bemidji State up in northern Minnesota, D2. That's it. You're having to throw to those 3 guys. And your tight ends are dead last in the league in production. Your tight ends have had 13 total targets this year and caught 8 balls for a grand total of 98 yards. So they're 8 for 98. Gronk by himself in Tampa Bay has caught 22 balls for 280 yards. So 22 to 8 catches in New England and 280 for Gronk to 98 total yards for the Patriot tight ends. who are by far dead last in production in the league, just as they were last year. And Bill drafted 2 tight ends in the 3rd round, and only one of them has seen the field so far. And Dalton Reese, last game in that debacle of a loss, got 1 target and caught 1 ball for 8 yards. And that's his only game that he's played. That's how Bill shored up the tight end position.
Well, Skip, I'm going to try to put this in automobile terms. Let's just say you let a friend borrow your car, and you haven't put all the transmission fluid in the car for, say, 6 months. But the friend wrecks the car. Now, the mechanic tells the friend, had you not wrecked the car, this thing was going to fall apart anyway. Well, that's what Coach Belichick, he has nothing, the cupboard is bare. But Cam is wrecking it, so we don't get an opportunity to see how, if Cam was playing well, like, because you look at it, Skip, you look at what he did against Miami. That's still the same offense. You look at what he did against Seattle. Oh. The cupboard is bare. But because Cam is playing so bad, Cam is basically about to wreck the car, so we don't get an opportunity to see that you haven't put oil in transmission.
Okay, I got it. Yet, the flip side of that story is Cam rose above the bare cupboard and played extraordinary football for 2 games against Miami with his legs and at Seattle with his arm. He threw for almost 400 yards at Seattle. And it went to the last play. And if he said, like you were the first to point out, Cam, if you just bounce it outside, you win the game.
It is, though. Yes.
Okay? It came down to that. That's how great Cam was in the first 2 games. Okay? Then he got yanked down into oblivion by what's not left in the cupboard there. It's just a bunch of junk. And Julian Edelman, I told you, was broken down, beat up shell of himself. Now he's out again with a little knee scope. So he led the league in drops last year. He hasn't been very productive this year, except for that one night at Seattle. And now Cam has to live with the fact that the GOAT that he's replacing is on a tear down in Tampa Bay and has at least entered into the MVP conversation. And that creates even more pressure and focus on poor Cam Newton trying to rise above this garbage in New England.
But Skip, you and I both talked about it. In order for Cam to have success, he was going to have to be MVP Cam because he had nothing.
Yep.
We talked about that from day one. We said if Cam is not a 2015 MVP, this team is going to be terrible because there's nothing there.
Yep. Well, after Seattle, I thought he had entered the MVP race.
Right.
And then over the last 3 games, he's 1 touchdown to 6 interceptions.
Right.
Yeah.
So if he's not MVP Cam, you see what this team is. You see what this offense looked like. And the defense, Skip, what we thought would be a staple, what we thought would be a strong point, the defense doesn't look that good.
Nope, it doesn't. It's ranked 16th in yards allowed, which is not great.
No.
Okay.
All right, well, we're moving from one messy situation to another. Do the Cowboys have any shot Sunday against the Eagles? That's next.
Howdy, folks.